Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here and presenting us the FSOC annual report. I do want to ask some questions about that, but I was curious, based on on a follow-up to Mr. Baucus's questions about the IRS issue. You know, it seemed to me your response was, well, in 2011 there was a hard drive crash. That's life, and that the IRS really has done everything it can to comply with congressional requests. But I guess my question would be, I have three of them. One is I mean, do you think that it's important for the IRS, or do you think it's important for Congress to get answers to its questions? And is it important for Congress to be able to see those emails, whether we recover them from IRS or some other agency? Do you think that's important?
Not only do I think it's important, I think that's what the IRS has been trying to do, and Commissioner Koskinen has been working to develop, to assemble the emails to provide them for review of the learner.
All right. Well, but in your role as Secretary of the Treasury and ultimately the authority over the IRS, do you believe you have the authority to independently look at what the IRS is doing to make sure that this gets done? And what have you done, what are you going to do to make sure that we pull out all the stops to get these emails?
Yeah, I believe that they are working quite hard. The number of hours and man-years, person-years that have been put into this, the amount of money that is spent is astronomical. They have made an enormous effort. Commissioner Koskinen has testified at length on it. Obviously, it is not a situation that anyone chose to have. There have been a machine failure in 2011, but they've worked as hard as they can to reconstruct, and 70,000 emails, I believe, were turned over for review.
Understood, but obviously it's a very critical time period, and I guess what I would love to hear as a member of Congress who has constituents that are very worked up about this, I would love to know that the Secretary of Treasury is exercising everything within his power to make sure that the IRS is doing that, and it doesn't sound like you've taken any direct role whatsoever, and that concerns me.
When I became aware of this, what I was told was that the message had been sent from Treasury, I believe appropriately: find out everything you can, find whatever you can, and give a complete report when you have that. That report was completed. I concur with the advice that was given, and if there's any more that can be done, it should be done. But
but you are the doer. I mean, it seems like to me that's a passive.
No, what I can't do is make a hard drive that broke not be broken.
I understand that,
you know,
but
what they've gone and done is they've looked at all the recipients of emails to pull them out from the recipients' email records. They're doing everything they can, and an enormous amount of information has been provided.
Okay. Thank you. Let me just ask I've only got 2 minutes left, but let me just ask you this question. I represent Virginia's 5th District, a rural district, a lot of main streets, small businesses, family farms, working Virginia families, and access to capital is very important, and community banks and credit unions play a huge role in reaching the people that I represent. In the last 30 years, and I'm sure you know these figures, we've gone from seeing 18,000 community banks that held 40% of bank assets, 18,000 to now today, fewer than 7,000 community banks, 18,000 to 7,000, and assets amounting to 40% to now down to 15%. And I guess my question is a part of the mission of the Financial Stability Oversight Council, your role as chair, does that trend concern you? The idea that we're reducing the number of community banks and the assets that are held there, and does that in and of itself present its own systemic risk when you have the consolidation of these assets and banks the way we've seen over the last 30 years? Does that concern you? And if it does, what do we do about it? What can you do about it? What is the FSOC doing about it?
Congressman, as the different agencies with responsibility for implementing Dodd-Frank have taken action, each and every one has made efforts to try and treat community banks in a way that reflects the importance that they play in our economy and the fact that they're different from large institutions. There's a lot of discussion about it, there's a lot of attention to it, and I believe the rules reflect that. We have a dynamic and changing landscape in the financial services world. We have to keep an eye on what those changes are. I think the community banks play an important part in it, and as we've acted, tried to reflect that.
But does that trend concern you? Where do we, well, I'll
Gentleman's
go
time has
back.
expired.
Thank you.
Gentleman
Thank you,
from
Mr. Chairman.